Greetings. It is Friday, May the 22nd, in the rather significant and rather tumultuous year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Midweek Report. Well, the man from Kentucky, Thomas Massie, is out. He lost the primary, and he didn't lose it really in the way it should be lost. He was targeted by AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. Yeah, them, the people that should be foreign agents because that's what they are, but they can get away with all sorts of stuff, shall we say. No, this man was targeted for destruction and they won. So it looks like we really are the United States of Israel now, aren't we? Now, whether you like Israel or not, it doesn't matter. A foreign country should not have that much influence over another one, especially if they're friends and allies. That's kind of disrespectful. No, they're boasting about getting rid of him. My goodness, if you cross America's greatest ally, you're really going to be set up for destruction now, aren't you? And I don't think they're going to give up. I mean, they're going to get him out of Congress. He's obviously lost the primary. But they're going to keep nailing him to the wall as much as they can. They have that sort of habit of going after people that don't like them. At what point are people going to say enough? At what point are people going to say that this foreign country that gets an awful lot of aid from the United States, I think it's more than $1 trillion, some crazy amount ever since it's come into existence, should they really be dictating policy? Should they? Well, they should have their say. I know people that represented various countries back in the day. I knew people that represented Saudi Arabia in the United States, members of Congress, and Taiwan and a few other places. But they were registered foreign agents. They had to be very transparent in how they operated. Foreign countries do have a right to lobby members of Congress and make their positions known. But targeting members of Congress in an election? Saudi Arabia ever did that, or Taiwan, or Russia, or anyone else, I don't think it would go over too well. But for some reason, Israel doesn't seem to need the rules applied to them. This is a warning sign, whether you like Mr. Massie or not. A lot of people didn't like him. They had their reasons. Interference in American elections by foreign countries, that is not cool. And people really have to start waking up to that and stop denying it. And speaking of foreign and domestic problems, in Virginia, the Democrats are still kicking around the idea of removing one or more of the justices of the Commonwealth Supreme Court and replacing them with one of their choosing. They're still upset about that gerrymandering law they tried to force down everyone's throat, and of course the Supreme Court overturned it. The United States Supreme Court also refused to hear the case, so it's effectively dead, but they're not giving up. The Democrats are both evil and desperate these days, probably why they want to get rid of guns so badly, as is the way with all tyrants. Beware Virginians and other Americans. They will stop at nothing to take power, never give it up, and enslave you to their ways. Can happen here, as it does other places. The Democratic Party of today are the incarnate of the domestic enemies the Founding Fathers warned us about, and so many generations of our ancestors fought against. Now it's our turn. Remember, Virginia, sic semper tyrannis. Now, on to everyone's favorite topic, or not, the war in Iran. How is that going? Well, I don't know. Donald Trump is constantly playing games, either with himself, his enemies, or his friends. No one's really sure. The blockade continues. Iran seems to be rebuilding its military, and, well, I think they've been planning this for a long time, just like the Americans were. Again, people really don't know what's going on over there and don't know what's going on in the White House. I'm getting good reports that there are uprisings in Iran. The country is fractured, but that also is a problem because instead of dealing with one government, you're dealing with what appears to be a couple of dozen. Well, I don't know how it's going to go, folks. And you know what? Anybody who's out there telling you how it's going to go is just full of hooey. Watch carefully. because this is going to have more of an economic impact on things than anything else. I do suspect the U.S. is going to start bombing again, as will the Israelis. The Israelis, more than anyone, the people that were lobbying to get rid of Thomas Massie, well, they want to see Iran obliterated. They don't want to see a regime change as much as they want to see that country become a basket case. And I suspect that the Iranian diaspora are going to start waking up to something that they should have woken up to a long time ago. And that is that, don't look for people to rescue you, because very often, at least at the national level, they're doing so for their own selfish purposes. Now, there is another angle here, and people keep forgetting this. Iran is run, or has been run, by religious crazy people. Extremists is a very polite way of putting it. I just consider them insane. Now, Islam has an awful lot to it than what we hear about. And there is a factor that's been pointed out in a few places by some scholars that, I'm calling the Mahdi factor. Who is Mahdi? Well, he is the savior of Islamic legend. This is a guy who, like all the other Abrahamic saviors, are going to come back to earth. They will then lead an army, usually towards Israel or Jerusalem or whatever, and they're going to kill everybody. Kind of common. They believe in Iran, and this is coming out now in several corners among analysts who really do know what they're talking about, that they are preparing for the end of the world. Well, that's a good reason for them not to have nuclear weapons. People that believe that nuclear weapons are a good way to bring back Mahdi or Jesus or whatever, you don't want to see that. And yes, there are Christians, a lot of them in this country, that believe that if there's a nuclear mushroom cloud in the Middle East, or a bunch of them, good old Jesus is going to come walking out. And, well, why he would do that, I would imagine. But again, you're not dealing with sanity. So let's stop talking about this stuff as rational. It's not. Anything fanatical is inherently not religious. But if the Iranians have been playing this savior coming back from history or coming back from God or whatever, and they're really gearing everything towards that, that's something you cannot negotiate with. You can only obliterate it, in which case, if Trump has given them some breathing space to rearm or retool or get themselves organized, he hasn't done himself or us a good service. You cannot negotiate with religious fanatics. You can only kill them. And if that is what is motivating Iran, the Mahdi factor, we're in for a real rough ride, because they're not going to give up. They will have more incentive to keep fighting than the Germans did in World War II, or the Japanese for that matter. You can't negotiate with insanity. So watch that very carefully, but I would recommend looking up Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I. You can find it just about anywhere online. It's interesting, and I've been reading up on this, and it did make the hair go up on the back of my neck a little bit, saying, oh no, not more of this insanity. Well, let's hope they don't have nuclear weapons. Or one thing I'm curious about is, do they have chemical or biological weapons? Because they're kind of easier to make and get and deploy. And no one's talked about that. Kind of wonder why. Now, as a sidebar to all of this problem in the Middle East, this war that's cut off the Straits of Hormuz, food and fuel are going to hurt if they haven't already. It's going to be a nasty summer, and I don't think Thanksgiving is going to be as thankful as a lot of us would want. Fuel prices are doubling by the end of this summer, most likely. They've gone up more than 50%. I've noticed that because I do travel a lot. And food, of course, is tied to energy. Diesel fuel, which is extremely expensive, and I've mentioned this before, is what's used to transport food from farms and to grow it on farms. And right now, farmers are growing food in the United States and elsewhere in the Northern Hemisphere. And it is costing a lot. Farmers are going out of business. I'm hearing reports of that. They're not going to make a profit. They're not going to plant anything. They're going to sell their land to another data center startup or Bill Gates or something like that. This is not good. There's another factor too. Helium comes from that part of the world, and that's used to make microprocessors. You can expect computers and phones and other such things that use helium in their production to go through the ceiling. Fertilizer, of course, is going to be a problem. There's going to be a lot of people dying of hunger in this world because of this mess. And the thing about it is it's totally unnecessary because the U.S. doesn't get any of its oil through the Straits of Hormuz. We have plenty of our own, but because of the way the global marketplace operates, speculation is what drives prices. So even though we have just as much oil as we've always needed to grow food in this country or to power our cars, we're being penalized to make a handful of people very wealthy, many of whom are probably friends of the current presidential administration, but that's another factor. Now, speaking of data centers, they are a curse upon this planet. And I am very unfortunate that I am based in a place, Northern Virginia, where they're growing up like mushrooms on manure after a rainstorm. I was reading yesterday there are now more than 250 of these monstrosities all over what was once one of the most beautiful places in the world, the place where Thomas Jefferson and Madison and George Washington used to traverse. AI is designed to put people out of work and inflict poverty and control on all but the few who will be running things. And don't tell me otherwise. Has anyone heard about AI coming up with a cure for cancer yet? We were told about that. Or what about coming up with some ways to solve all the other problems humanity faces? No, I haven't heard anything either, and I'm not holding my breath. And there's more and more of these things that are popping up. They're taking up our water. They're taking up our arable land for growing food. They're taking up electricity. Electricity is also going to go through the ceiling, folks. This is not good. And people are not going to be doing anything about it. And they have to. Now, speaking of science fiction nightmares, the second batch of UFO files came out today. I saw them this morning at the Department of War website. Isn't it nice we have a Department of War again? Used to be defense, and we didn't do much of that. Just like the Department of Corrections, where the prisoners go. They don't correct anything, but at least there's truth in advertising now. So the Department of War website, they put out the latest, and not many files, of the UFO phenomena, or they call it something else now. Nothing really impressive. There was one video there of an American warplane shooting down something, but the rest of it was the same old, same old. Somebody saw streaks of light. Somebody saw something fly across. I didn't see all of it, but none of it was anything earth-shattering. No pictures of cigar-smoking extraterrestrials with their feet up on a desk. This is just a distraction, folks. I have to point that out. Now, if there are extraterrestrials here and they're hidden or they're tied up with the deep state, well, they're not friends of mine, and I'm not really in a position to do much about it anyways. But let me point out something to those of you who are looking for the truth to come out or what have you. The United States government's never going to admit to anything of the sort, even if it's true. Why? Because the one thing they're scared of more than anything else, more than nuclear war, is legal liability. And so many people have gotten caught up with UFOs or gotten into divorces or lost their jobs because they were obsessed with it, or went into psychosis because they saw a flying saucer and could never figure it out. All these people would sue like nothing. And the U.S. government doesn't like lawsuits that they could lose. So to admit that they've been lying to us for, 70, 80 years maybe, if you go back to Roswell, if it's true, we would all end up bankrupt from it. And considering the U.S. doesn't have any money, is nearing $40 trillion in debt, well, you really don't want to add to that bill. No, they're involved in something, but they're not going to admit it. This is just a way to distract or to appease people. And we wish people would not waste their time with this here, because that's what they want you to do. Time is the most valuable thing in the universe, I know that. It's more valuable than anything. It's the only thing that can't be replaced. You ever notice that? Time can't be replaced. You can replace galaxies, you can replace planets, ecosystems, species. You can replace oil if you give it enough time to ferment in the ground. You cannot replace one moment of time. And when someone is out to enslave you, they want you to waste your resources. And your most valuable one is time. So please ignore this nonsense, really. If they do show up, if somebody trounces out an extraterrestrial or they start walking down the street, it'll be hard to tell the difference between ETs and robots, which we'll be seeing soon enough, I'm sure. Just don't waste your time with it. Focus on what you can change or influence, not on something that hasn't really been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in closing, I'd like to make an appeal for those of you out there to please support real journalism where you find it. There are not many of us left. Our numbers continue to dwindle, much like Europeans in Europe, actually. Doing what we do is a thankless and often hazardous task. Many of us were trained by some rather amazing people back in the day. We took it upon as a sacred duty to call things as we see them, but also pass on facts. And if we didn't know something, be honest enough to say we didn't know something. We have too many people out there trying to explain things that they have no way of knowing, whether it be what's going on with the war in the Middle East, what's going on in the minds of the President of the United States, Prime Minister of Israel, or President of Russia, or you name them. They really don't know. Don't look for facts where there aren't any. Don't look for reality where none exists. And a good, solid journalist is going to tell you that. And it's also going to tell you not to worry too much about things you have no control over. You have to only focus on what you can change. Usually that's just for yourself. But when you do see journalists like us, like me, like some of my friends, do what you can to support us, usually with donations, because this is a thankless job and it's also a labor of love. And labors of love seldom pay the bills too much. But also know this. While the truth itself doesn't cost anything, telling the truth often costs everything. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies, whether they be foreign or domestic. I can be reached in feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. And please consider a paid subscription. It keeps the lights on and the gas tank full. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, clown world, the deep state, and all the bad guys out there must be destroyed. Good day.